Sharon, lovely to chat with you as always. Thank you for taking a little time for us.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
I was so excited to see this interview that you got to do. You got to sit down with former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. And I'm just curious why you wanted to talk to her and what you really took from that conversation.
Yeah, she does so few interviews that to even be granted an interview was a really high honor. I mean, anybody who has served as Secretary of State, and of course, she was also formerly the National Security Advisor too, has a unique perspective on the world that cannot be replicated even by other secretaries of state because they are serving at a time that is unique to them when the situation in the world is at a unique inflection point. So, of course, I've also interviewed Tony Blinken, Biden's Secretary of State. I think it's such a unique, perspective on what's going on. And of course, there's a lot going on in the world.
Sure.
And I wanted to, hear her take on it. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about what she's up to now. People often wonder, like, what do government officials do when they're done with office? And what she has done is she, is a Stanford professor, and she does a lot of work on civic education, which of course is something I'm particularly passionate about. So this gave us an opportunity to sort of connect on both of those fronts about civic education and about sort of the state of the world and, how the United States is uniquely positioned at this moment in time.
There is a lot going on, as you mentioned, in all levels of government, really. So how do you make sure that you're staying up to date without really getting overwhelmed by all of this information?
Yeah, that's a question people ask me all the time because I hear from so many people that they don't want to have their head in the sand. They don't want to pretend that nothing's happening, but they also cannot allow their entire lives to be consumed with the 24-hour news cycle. So it's a really common question and a common way to feel. I always have a couple pieces of advice. One is to pay more attention to your local news, to watch your local news broadcasts, and to read your local newspapers. That's, again, not to say that you shouldn't watch, national news broadcasts, but your local to you news is directly impacting your life on a daily basis. And it's also a lot easier to get your arms around. And then the second thing I would say is social media is obviously a fantastic tool. I have a lot of social media followers. I personally try to use social media for good on a daily basis. So this is not a knock on all social media, but it's really not the most efficient or the best place to get all of your news. I would recommend signing up for a couple of daily news digests from organizations that you trust. I know the Associated Press has one in the morning and one in the afternoon, for example, and then read those. If there is, some big headline that you need to know about, that's going to be in there. And it allows you to see what's happening in the world without feeling like you need to dedicate 20 hours a day to consuming news content.
I think that's really helpful, yes. Are you encouraged at all just seeing the engagement that I think we are seeing around the country of people engaging with the government, whether it's locally or nationally, and whether they're happy with what's going on or not? Is there something encouraging in that for you?
I think so. I mean, again, I think a lot of what you're seeing now is the mobilization of people at a grassroots level that I think has always been a harbinger of change. We think back to the civil rights movement, which was not a top-down movement, but again, a grassroots movement, not a grass blades, grassroots, and a lot of important change. Like the women's suffrage movement, other groups have mobilized grassroots organization to make change that they think is important. And often because that change requires such widespread buy-in, it means that there is a push to try to make these sort of changes lasting, as opposed to top-down changes that are much They might be more sweeping, they might be faster, but they are also much more prone to sort of that whiplash effect or that pendulum effect of when a new person gets elected, everything swings to one direction, and then when the next person gets elected, they swing to the other. If we want important, lasting, meaningful change, there has to be buy-in from the citizenry. We're not supposed to just be complacent, because democracy actually is a challenging form of government. There have been a lot of political scientists who have said things like, it's the worst form of government, democracy is, but it's the best one we've come up with. So we are meant to engage with it, and that's a sign of a healthy democratic engagement when you have people who are working together to make change. So I like to see it. I'd like to see this kind of engagement all the time, no matter who's in power. I think it's healthier for people to feel like they are trying to do something rather than sitting around lamenting.
Most definitely. Well, thanks for sharing your perspective. I appreciate it as always, and it was good to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks, Bailey.